Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to really brace yourself for this one, because today we are about to completely challenge your most fundamental perception of reality. Seriously, we're going to be diving deep into some truly profound insights from contemplative traditions, specifically looking at the penetrating wisdom associated with Alan Watts to figure out what it actually means to be conscious. So, let me kick things off with a question that, well, it might actually feel a little insulting at first. Are you awake right now? I mean, sure, your eyes are open, you're sitting there taking in this explainer, biologically you're doing your thing. But what if in literally every way that dictates the actual texture of your life, your choices, your joys, your daily frustrations, what if you're actually entirely asleep? What if the life you experience as yours wasn't actually built by you, but was just assigned to you? Now here is the part that should honestly stop you cold. By every measure that actually matters, you are asleep, and you wouldn't even know it. This psychological slumber is an absolute tragedy, but it hides right in plain sight. It's this invisible dream that we never even think to question, mostly because it perfectly masquerades as everyday clarity. The very mechanism keeping you asleep is constantly patting you on the back, convincing you that everything's fine and you're the one calling all the shots. In the Buddhist tradition, they actually have a specific name for this condition: moha. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand here is that moha isn't madness, and it's definitely not some wild hallucination or dramatic break from reality. Not at all. It's more like a quiet, pervasive fog. It settles over the mind so incredibly gradually that we don't even notice it. It just simply becomes the default lens through which we unwittingly experience our entire inherited, unchosen lives.
Which brings us to Section 1, the constructed self. Let's look at the actual root of this fog.
So the very seed of this fog is your absolute, unshakable conviction that you are this fixed, independent, solid self. Well, it's time to introduce yourself to the concept of anatta, or non-self. Now, don't panic. This doesn't mean you literally don't exist. The self isn't a lie per se, but rather it's an enormously convincing story. It's a highly sophisticated narrative that your brain is constructing moment by moment, pulling together fragments of memory, bits of language, and a whole lot of social feedback. Try thinking about it this way. Are you a stone or are you a vortex? Right? A stone in water is a solid, independent, unchanging substance. But a vortex in that same water, it has a distinct shape, a specific location, it definitely behaves in a certain way, but there's no actual permanent substance there. It's just a dynamic, ongoing pattern. You are the vortex. You totally lack the permanent, unyielding substance of a stone, yet, and here's the kicker, we spend our whole lives absolutely exhausting ourselves trying to defend and protect this fluid story as if it were solid rock. Okay, Section 2, the engines of sleep. Let's talk about the restless mechanisms maintaining the story. Get this, researchers estimate that we generate a staggering 60 to 80,000 thoughts every single day. Seriously, just let that number sink in for a second. And the crazy part, most of this isn't even purposeful, productive thinking. It's just repetitive noise. It's relentless, endless rumination about an unchangeable past or freaking out about an uncontrollable future. It is completely and utterly detached from the actual present moment. The crucial takeaway here is captured so perfectly in this quote. This ceaseless mental motion is not aliveness, it is a substitute for aliveness. Wow. See, this constant mental noise acts as a massive, elaborate defense mechanism. It keeps the sleeping mind so completely, thoroughly occupied with drama that it never actually has to pause and encounter the raw, immediate, and frankly, sometimes terrifying beauty of its own existence. Now, underneath all that surface noise is our deep-seated conditioning. In the contemplative traditions, these are called samskaras. You can kind of think of them as deep grooves or ruts carved into a dirt road, formed by years and years of emotional repetition. Your inherited fears, your borrowed ambitions, they just layer up like sediment over time. Eventually, the wheel of your mind gets stuck in those ruts and literally can't go anywhere else. This automatic, habitual path of least resistance gets so well worn that you eventually just mistake it for your true personality. Moving on to Section 3, the collective slumber. This is where we dive into the shared dream. So we have to talk about the comparing mind. This is the part of us constantly measuring everything against yesterday, measuring ourselves against others, measuring reality against imagined ideals. You walk into a room and boom, your mind instantly runs a background calculation of who has more money, more status, better looks. It constantly filters and evaluates absolutely every sensation, which creates this persistent, exhausting sense of incompleteness. The sleeping self doesn't just passively experience life, it judges it, relentlessly and without mercy. This constant, low-grade atmospheric anxiety has a name, dukkha, but here is the absolute most essential thing to understand about dukkha. That lack, that sense of incompleteness you feel, it isn't actually in your life itself. Nope. It's generated entirely by the comparing mind. The present moment actually arrived perfectly whole, but your comparing mind immediately jumped in and decided it found something missing. So you might be wondering, why does this constant state of sleepwalking feel so totally, undeniably normal to us? Well, it's because of one deeply uncomfortable truth. We are entirely surrounded by other sincere sleepwalkers. We're all living inside this massively shared, culturally reinforced dream. And because of that, waking up isn't just some private, personal realization. Waking up is actually a profoundly social act of courage. It takes immense bravery to see clearly when clarity is honestly super socially inconvenient.
All right, Section 4, the trap of seeking. Let's look out for the spiritual ego.
Okay, major warning here. The biggest trap waiting for absolutely anyone trying to wake up is the spiritual ego. The exact moment you take this concept of awakening and you turn it into a project, a destination, or some kind of competitive achievement, boom, something has gone profoundly wrong. Striving for enlightenment is literally just the sleeping ego putting on a fancy costume of humility. It completely misses the point, because liberation is absolutely not an achievement to be acquired or a special state that you can use to compare yourself favorably against other people.
Which brings us to Section 5, returning to the present, finding that constant awareness.
Listen, awakening isn't some mystical achievement you have to go find in a distant mountain cave. Not at all. The awareness is the constant. The story is the variable. Awakening is really just that constant, quiet background awareness that is already witnessing every single ordinary moment of your life. It's the presence that is fully aware of the mental noise, but isn't the noise itself. It was there when you were a kid, it's there during your highest joys, and it is right there with you right now as you listen to my voice. But how do we actually access it? Well, as the old saying goes, you cannot wake up from the neck up. The contemplative traditions are incredibly insistent on this point. The physical body, and specifically the breath, is the primary, most profound vehicle for pulling your time-traveling, story-generating mind right back down to the present moment. Think about it. You literally cannot breathe yesterday's breath. So let's actually walk through an incredibly practical application of this. Step 1. Just try to notice your habitual reaction. Maybe it's that familiar, anxious urge to just grab your phone and start endlessly scrolling. Step 2. Feel your feet making actual physical contact with the ground right now. Really sense your own weight. And Step 3. Breathe one breath all the way in and all the way out with your absolute full attention. Honestly, just feeling one single breath without your mind going anywhere else, that is the entire practice of awakening in miniature. There's this absolutely beautiful Zen insight that just perfectly reinforces everything we've been talking about today. It says, this very place is the lotus land, this very body, the Buddha. The liberation that you're seeking, it is not some future improvement on this exact moment. It is this exact, messy, imperfect, completely unfinished moment finally seen clearly without the suffocating fog of moha.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering question for you to carry into the rest of your day. Where's your attention right now? Because remember, simply noticing that you have fallen asleep, just catching yourself getting lost in the story again, that very act of noticing is the exact act of waking up. You quite literally cannot fail at this, because the exact second you realize you are dreaming, you are perfectly awake. So as you step away from this explainer today, what will you notice next?